You ever wake up tired no matter how much rest you get? Not too long ago, I did a coaching live on the 7 types of rest, and I want to focus in on those today because sometimes, no matter what we do, we just still feel tired. And going to sleep is not the only form of rest. There are actually multiple types of rest. And if you're not getting all of them to some extent, that is why you feel so exhausted. So, physical rest, this is the most popular type of rest. We all know about it. It's getting your 8 hours of rest. It's napping when you close your eyes and you doze off and drift off into dreamland. That's the physical type of rest. We all need it. It's very important. It's how our body regenerates itself. But sometimes you'll notice that you get all of this physical sleep and you still wake up tired. You still wake up exhausted. You still wake up fighting for your life and yawning all day. And you feel as if you just cannot get your footing. That is because you may just be not rested in the other 6 types of rest. So let's talk about those. So that physical rest is important. Without that, you may as well not even pay attention to the other 6 that I'm going to talk about because physical is the most important. The other most important type of rest, this is number 2, is your mental rest. You need breaks. You need mindfulness. You need something that is going to stop you from thinking about what needs to be done, what should be done, what could have been done, what's coming up. You need that mental break. And this could look like completing a puzzle or just watching a show that, relaxes your brain, that takes you away like an escape. I like to look at comedies to do this. That's a mental break. Anything that's not going to have you thinking about what needs to be done helps your mental. Yes, it's important sometimes to just get into a lazy mode and take that mental rest. It is healthy for you. You need it. Your body needs it. And your mind needs it. The next one is social rest. Now, this type of rest can be tricky because it involves socializing, right? And when you think of socializing, some may think that, okay, if I'm around people and I'm socializing and I'm talking and running my mouth, that is not rest. But being around loved ones who keep you in a calm state, people who are good for your health, people who are good for your mental health, people who are good for your well-being, that's a good thing. Spending time with them and just laughing and joking, that's a part of social rest. Also having your solitude moments, your moments of solitude. But the moments with loved ones are going to bring you joy. You ever feel like, I know I have, you've been invited somewhere and you just don't feel up to going, you don't feel like it because you got too many things on your mind, or maybe you're, grieving or upset about something, and then you go to the invite and you get around the people, your people, and you end up just laughing and having a good time, and your mind is taken off of everything that you were worried about. That's that social rest. Those type of people bring you social rest, and they are so necessary. Now, this is the opposite of a person who is draining. Someone who is going to stress you out with a whole bunch of worry and nonsense, stay void of them. If you've been listening to this channel, you already know how I feel about that type of person. I'm not going to never be around them if I can help it. But you especially don't want to be around these type of people if you are trying to gain some type of social rest. And spending time with those loved ones who bring you joy is just as important as having those solitude moments to yourself. The next type of rest I'm going to talk about is that emotional rest, that self-care, the things that you can do for yourself that bring mental clarity. Also, putting up boundaries, saying no when necessary, writing in a journal, things like that. Now, let's take it back to these boundaries. Saying no, how is that emotional rest? Because, look, people will put stuff on you that's not even in your wagon or on your load of responsibilities to complete. Why? Because they don't want to do it. So they may put the burden on you. When you say no and step back and say, I'm not dealing with that, especially if it's a scenario that you didn't create and it's just a dumpster fire of things that need to be completed, step out of that caretaker role or that martyr role and sometimes just say no. Take an emotional break. Get your emotional rest. That's the self-care that I'm talking about. Putting up those boundaries, not letting those draining people in your orbit, okay? And then journaling, taking time to write out your thoughts, have a brain dump, get into your mind and get everything out of your mind, should I say, and onto paper so that you are well emotionally rested. The next type of rest that I want to talk about is sensory rest. This involves not being on social media, not looking at the television, but more so just being in quiet in nature. Or if you're not a nature person, getting into a good book, letting the quiet hit your ears. Because sometimes we can have sensory overload, and that makes us tired. Especially me. This is a big one for me. Because if I'm hearing a lot of background noise and I'm tuning into everything, it can get overwhelming. So that sensory rest is important for me. I have to have sensory rest in my day. I can't just endlessly scroll. I can't just endlessly look at the television. I have to have my quiet time at some point during the day. Now I'm flip-floppy with that. Sometimes I may want to get into nature and go on a hike if it's nice outside. But if it's cold outside, I'm not going to be outside. You can find me curled up with a good book or even a magazine. That sensory rest is important. It's important for your nerves. Your nerves need to rest. When your senses are constantly going off and you're hearing all this dinging and noise and opinions and talking heads, as I like to say, on social media or on platforms. I mean, somebody might see me as a talking head, but at least I'm talking some sense. Some people are just talking heads and they're talking nonsense. They're talking about a bunch of nothing, and you're just taking that in. You need that sensory rest. The next type of rest that you need is creative rest, drawing or writing. I know writing is a part of emotional rest too, with getting your thoughts out, but maybe do some creative writing for that creative rest, like writing a story or writing a book. Write a little bit at a time if you don't want to do it all at once or if it feels like too much pressure, or even trying something new. Let's say you're not a writer. I'm a writer, so I like to write, but I also like to dance. So trying something new. Dance is not really new to me, but I don't consider myself a dancer. But yes, I like to dance. And I had to go to a few dance classes, different types of dance classes, before I found the one that I absolutely enjoy. And when you try something new, that's why I tried different dance classes, because some of them were fun, but then they got boring. And I said, might as well try something new. I know I like dance. I just don't like doing this no more. Let me try something else. Trying something new, that's the key. You have to tap into that creative rest. And what does that do? Again, it gets your brain off of work mode or always having to think about what's next. And I like to think about it as taking myself back to my college days or maybe high school days. You know, I didn't have all the adult responsibilities that I have now, or even the adult mind that I have now. Life was just going to class, having fun, and then I was always a part of a dance team or some type of cheerleading squad. So that's where a lot of my time went. So this type of creative rest for me is just kind of like going back in time. That's why I choose dance, to get my creative rest. If I'm not writing, I'm dancing in my free time because it gives my mind that break. It kind of takes me back to when I was a kid or when I was super young and didn't have any responsibilities or didn't have many responsibilities. It helps my mind to rest. Learning a routine. People may say, oh, that's hard if dance is not their thing. But for me, learning a routine, I like to get that 8 count or that 3 count in my head because then I'm only focused on that and nothing else. I'm not focused on what needs to be done. I'm not focused on any deadlines. I'm just focused on that 2-step and how I can get that right. And that kind of frees my mind. So creative rest is important. So maybe cooking is your thing. Maybe creating some type of art is your thing. Maybe you have multiple things like me. Like I said, I have dance, I have writing. I also like to cook. I just have to be in my moods to cook. And I also like to do art. I have to be in my moods for art. So switching it up sometimes. And if it's getting stale or old, trying something new. And last but not least is going to be that spiritual rest. And this, to me, is somewhat a part of sensory rest because that spiritual rest is when you meditate, you reflect, or you just connect with a higher being. If you believe in God, you're praying. If you don't believe in God, I don't know what you're doing because I don't know. I don't know about that. No shade, but I'm just saying I don't know what else you can do. But the spiritual rest is needed because it's your time to connect with your higher power and meditate and get in your mind and just be in your mind. And you may experience that when you try to seek spiritual rest, how much unrested you are because it's hard to sit in silence when you haven't done it in a long time or when you're not used to it. It's really, really hard to just sit in silence and be with your own thoughts. But it's so needed. Every single person that I know who meditates says that it was hard to do 2 minutes at first. They had to work their way up. They did 2 minutes, 3 minutes, then 4 minutes, then 5 minutes, and so forth. And now they're up to meditating for a full 30 minutes. Me, I think I'm at maybe 10 minutes where I can do it without, being distracted. But when you're on sensory overload and you have all these thoughts and noises and everything coming in, it's hard to sit in silence and just be at peace with a higher power and just be at peace with your thoughts. It's really hard, but it's so necessary. It's necessary. And you have to work your way up and get to that point. And when you do, you will experience spiritual rest. So again, if you are lacking in one of these areas, It may be the reason that you are still tired. It may be the reason that you are still exhausted and just feel like you can't stop running on E. But if you've got all of those 7 types of rest established, then you will start to feel better. You will start to feel more rejuvenated, almost as if you've never felt this rested before. Like, where has this been all of my life? So see, sleeping is not the only form of rest. And you wonder why you're so tired. You need all 7 types of rest to fulfill the rest that your body needs. So let me just run down an example of what a typical well-rested day looks like. Okay, you get your 8 hours of sleep at night, right? You wake up well rested, you do what you do, whether it's work or work out or do whatever you need to do, but you find time to watch an episode of Martin. You sit down and watch that episode of Martin, kick back, maybe eat a snack while you do that. And then if it's not a weekend day or a day that you can, kick back and have brunch with your friends, then maybe, you can sit in solitude, read a nice book. Your phone rings. Tyrone calls and needs to borrow your car for the weekend. Tyrone. No, I need my car. Okay, learning how to say no. Or maybe Debbie Downer texts and wants to borrow $500 because she's behind on rent. Girl, I can't give you $500 because then that's going to set me back. And I don't lend out more than I'm willing to let go. It's a lot for me to let go of $500, okay? I can give you $200. That way, if you don't pay me back, I'm not hurting, okay? We all have adult responsibilities out here. My money is not your fun money. My money is not your play money. Learn how to say no to people. And then for a short spell, you want to put your phone on Do Not Disturb for a couple of hours, or maybe even an hour. Maybe start with an hour. 1 hour where you can't be bothered by that phone ringing and dinging. I'm talking about ringing, people calling you, or text messages. And maybe take a nap while that phone is on Do Not Disturb. Just have some uninterrupted nap time or some uninterrupted reading time. Now it's time for that dance class, okay? And if it's not a day where you go to your dance class, then maybe you can sit and journal or write a poem or write a song or just get your thoughts out. Or if you don't like to get your thoughts out on paper, record a voice recording and just talk through some things. The point here is to get your creative juices flowing. So whatever makes you feel creative. Cook something, follow a recipe. If you don't have time to do that, then anything that's going to get those creative juices flowing. And then to settle your day down, you meditate and prayer. I like to pair that together. While I'm meditating, I say a prayer. And that covers everything. You got that physical rest with those 8 hours of sleep. You got that mental rest by watching a funny TV show like an episode of Martin. You got that social rest by brunching with friends. You got that emotional rest by saying no to things that you don't want to say yes to. You got that sensory rest by putting that phone on Do Not Disturb. You got that napping, that's more physical rest. You got that creative rest by getting those creative juices flowing and freeing your mind of your responsibilities. And you got that spiritual rest. That's what it looks like in a typical day. And if you do these things regularly, not necessarily by the book or stressing yourself out trying to get all of them done, but if you incorporate these into your life on a regular basis, you will start to feel well rested. I promise you. Because oftentimes it's those little things that you're not incorporating that disrupts your peace and disrupts your rest. Thank y'all for listening.